Well, folks, we have a very special guest coming up in the program tomorrow. Former Vice President Dan Quayle returns to America Live. Last time he was here, he made some big news. We'll see what he has up his sleeve this time. It all happens tomorrow. And by the way, folks, if you want to go online to foxnews.com/America Live, you can vote on who won in Kelly's court. Thanks for watching. I'm Megan Kelly. Studio B with Shepard starts now.
Thanks, Meg. The news begins anew on Studio B, and the American woman dubbed Jihad Jamie in court today, and in box number 1 here, she's making a plea on charges including conspiring to help terrorists. We're live on scene with breaking details. And Afghanistan's President Hamid Karzai now on the record, responding to reports. He said he'll consider quitting his job to join America's enemy, the Taliban. The message today from the leader of Afghanistan as tens of thousands of American troops are over there fighting the war. In box number 3, a bank robbery caught on tape, and reports the bank manager didn't even realize it was happening. The rest of the video and the hunt for the April Fool's Day suspect, that's ahead on Studio B unless breaking news changes everything. But first from Fox this hour, no sign of life from the Upper Big Branch mine in West Virginia. But slim, however slim, the odds of finding survivors. Rescue crews are not stopping their work, far from it. We know at least 25 people are confirmed dead in the explosion that happened on Monday. 4 more still reported missing. Keep in mind, these are some of the people who helped supply the power we all use every day. Half of all electricity generated in the United States comes from coal. Today we got some updates coming from the people in charge of finding the missing men. First, the crews report they've finished drilling 1 ventilation hole into the mine, and they're working on 2 more. The officials also say they've been banging on a drill pipe, hoping to get a response from the 4 missing miners, but so far, they've heard nothing. As for a time...
William Hahn, HUHN.
The governor of West Virginia says that all depends on how long it takes to remove...
I'm trying to find out some transactions from 125. There are a number of overdraft fees, and I need to know who each one of the overdraft fees were for.
Will determine how quick and what timetable we're on.
January 26th, actually. There was a series of about 10 to 12, I can't even count that many, but there are a bunch of overdraft fees. I need to identify each one of them.
Many of the members of those rescue teams come from the same areas as the miners themselves, a rural area in West Virginia, right around the Upper Big Branch mine, right in the heart of America's coal country. The Fox Reports chief correspondent, Jonathan Hunt, is live near that mine in Montcole, West Virginia. Jonathan, what's the latest on the attempts to get back into that mine?
Well, Shep, they have now already begun testing the air down in that mine through the first drill hole that has reached the necessary depth of 1,100 feet. They put a fan on the end of the drill there. That enables them to monitor the levels of deadly methane. Now, at the moment, those levels are reading, as we understand, fairly high. They have not made a determination at this point as to whether they are too high for the crews to head back in. They want to get a second hole drilled. That second hole, just about an hour ago, was at about a depth of 560 feet, half the distance of where it needs to be. Then they'll start getting a better reading on those levels. Then they'll decide whether or not they can get those crews back in. They could well be in sometime this evening, Shep.
And you know, we're still hearing a lot of anger about the mining company's safety record.
Yes, absolutely. We are still hearing that, and that anger has been made even worse following our interview yesterday with Massey Energy CEO Don Blankenship on the Fox Report. During that interview, you'll remember he made what to many was an outrageous statement, saying that not only did he consider his mines safe, but he considered them the safest in the entire region. That struck many in this valley as deeply, deeply incongruous given his safety record. Many of those people won't talk because they are employed by that company. They're fearful of losing their jobs. But on a porch today along this river valley, we found a woman, Tammy Aphill, who was willing to speak. This was their response to Don Blankenship's claims that his mines are the safest in the region. Listen.
Honestly? Honestly, I'm very nice.
And a lot of people here, Shep, that's very, very nice. Tammy is one of the few, though, who will say it publicly, Shep. They're certainly praying and hoping for full miracles to walk out of the mine. Sheffield, as you heard the governor say, is really at this stage only a sliver of hope. Those two may have made it to the one rescue chamber, but the hopes are getting out of every passing hour.
Chief correspondent on the scene of breaking news and we'll get back to these alerts. Rescues, of course, working to pump water out of another mine, this one in China, in an attempt to locate missing miners from the flooded tunnels there. The national weather is moved by a mile in the northern part of the country. This is a water channel tunnel broken to a water-filled area, transported over 3 miles down there. The crews have actually managed to put 115 of them safely at the mine underground. Survivors say they were able to using the dogs to escape themselves to the water. They were on the ground and they told there's still 29 other miners in there, but there have been no other signs of life. Now to the United States nuclear policy and a big push by President Obama to reduce the world's nuclear arsenals. A few hours from now, the president will fly to the Czech Republic for another big part of that push. He and the Russian President Dmitry Medvedev are scheduled to sign a new nuclear treaty tomorrow. The administration calls it the strongest nuclear treaty between the two powers in 2 decades. The event will, by all accounts, be a very big deal. It was just one part of President Obama's efforts. Just yesterday, the administration announced the new rules for when and how the United States could potentially use nuclear weapons, and the United States is involved in long and difficult negotiations aimed at getting Iran and North Korea to give up their nuclear programs. Every one of those pieces plays a part now. Our team weather reporter Major Garrett is live in Prague in the Czech Republic ahead of the president's trip. Major, if we could, let's start with this agreement with the Russians. What are the basics here?
Well, good evening, Shepard. Just after 9 o'clock here local time in one of Europe's most beautiful capital cities, where, by the way, Dmitry Medvedev, the Russian president, arrived just a few moments ago. President Obama due to leave the White House in just about 4 hours. This treaty, Shepard, 160 pages long, the product of 10 sets of formal negotiations between the United States and Russia, and 9 separate phone conversations between the Russian president and Mr. Obama. And here's what it does in the big frame of things. And these are numbers compared to the last big nuclear arms treaty between the two countries back in 1991. That was called START. Let's talk first about those things that deliver nuclear warheads. That's intercontinental ballistic missiles, submarine-launched ballistic missiles, and those delivered by bombers. The old number available was 1,600 of those. Now that's going to be cut to 700. And the all-important number of warheads cutting from 2,200 in 1991 down to 1,550. This will not happen immediately, Shepard. The two nations will have 7 years to achieve those arms control reduction numbers. And in the main, these numbers aren't that exciting to arms control advocates, but what they do say is they herald a new, better relationship between the United States and Russia. And arms control experts say that could be very much good for both countries as they deal with the potential nuclear threat from Iran. Major, in what ways is this treaty linked to the new nuclear weapons policy the president announced just yesterday? Shepard, we have really 3 big events playing out over the next couple of weeks. Yesterday we had a nuclear posture review. That was an enormously important statement by the United States government when it will not use nuclear weapons. Now we have the treaty signing tomorrow. The next week, a nuclear security conference in Washington drawing more than 40 nations from around the world to talk about ending or perhaps stopping the nuclear arms race and putting tighter restrictions on potentially harmful loose nuclear materials that could fall into the hands of terrorists. All of this together, experts say, is part of an administration push to reduce the threat not only in America, but globally of nuclear weapons. Let's take a quick listen.
The president and his advisors wanted to be out front talking about how they see nuclear weapons in a serious, professional way that doesn't suggest any kind of starry-eyed idealism about the early abolition of nuclear weapons.
Of course, that is a long-term goal of President Obama, eliminating nuclear weapons entirely, and he did not believe the U.S. would have any credibility on that effort, beginning it or even seeing it completed. If he didn't make this treaty with the Russians and didn't do things differently as far as nuclear weapons used for the nuclear posture review announced yesterday. As for that nuclear posture review that was announced yesterday, the president said, if you don't have nukes and you don't try to get nukes, we won't nuke you. And also, the converse of that, the opposite of that is, if all of a sudden, let's say,